We are back with Rose Baldino and Brian Buchanan of House of Hamill. The new album is Wildfire, and the song you just heard is Wildfire. Um, so you've got a lot of darkness on this album, as we've covered. You have a double suicide, crying on a grave, Malloy. Somehow I feel like the darkest one is Wildfire.
It's the realist for sure.
Yeah.
It's probably I think it's the only song that isn't a story, really. It's
Mhm.
kind of just a reflection of looking out into the world. And I mean, we were inspired um because we had to go out and buy an air purifier because we couldn't breathe in our own house. So very literally by wildfires in Canada destroying the air quality throughout the northeastern US last year. Um But yeah, I mean, it's not a super hopeful song unless you consider the image of a phoenix rising from the ashes and rebirth after a wildfire to be a moment of hope. Um, because that's kind of it's sort of like a celebrating as it all comes crashing down. Watching the idiocracy take hold, I guess, is it's not a it's I guess it's not a super uplifting way to end the album, but we did think that like the idea of a wildfire kind of encapsulated the imagery in a lot of the songs, just the cycle of death leading to a new rebirth and a cleansing that can come with fire. So hopefully that comes through a little bit and it's not just depressing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the ideas in the song that compelled me the most was this sense of living through dark times, not just with the sense that things are slipping away, but the sense that you have to enjoy them as they're slipping away, because otherwise you're going to wake up and find yourself having not enjoyed them and they're gone. I felt like
Sure.
that was a
Mhm.
really compelling thought.
Sure, yeah. Take a final look around at the beauty to be found before it all breaks down. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that is a I mean that is a big part. We drive all over this continent doing what we do for a living, and there's so much beauty, and it just makes you, I mean, you sort of awestruck by it all, but then you're also, it's easy to fall into a depression when you realize that like people are actively working to strip away protections and strip away regulations and not do the things that need to be done to stop that beauty from all being destroyed and like actively destroyed.
Yeah, what is the balance between trying to fight to save that beauty and sort of finding the time to savor it and waiting for a phoenix to rise?
That's a great question. It's a hard time for us to answer that question because, like a lot of people, after the beginning of November, it's tempting sometimes when you feel depressed about the direction of the world um, to go insular and to kind of close the world out and say I'm going to look after me and mine and have find what happiness I can and not worry so much about trying to make the world a better place anymore if it's trying so hard to make itself a worse place. So I think we both kind of dealt with that a little bit in the last month, but we're I think we're both optimists. I'm definitely an optimist, so we
More
sometimes.
than me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and natural beauty, the great thing about natural beauty is because it's natural, it's there whether we look for it or not, and it's always there to be found, at least for now, when you need that break from reality to go and appreciate it. So no matter how long you kind of stew in your own depression and your own sadness, like eventually you can always go find a national park and lose a couple of days and kind of reconnect. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the balance is. Um, it's hard sometimes to feel like you're fighting to help people who don't want to be helped or who don't accept that the efforts that you're putting out will actually help them. So I don't know. It's a very philosophical question. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess I'll close out on a somewhat less philosophical note.
Okay.
Um, what is your favorite place to go for beauty for that healing?
Hmm. That's tough. God. I mean, it's I would say that in general for me, it's not a place that I can like go back to regularly. I think just like travel in general, like we've been to some really beautiful places. Like, I loved Alberta, Canada, like Banff National Park. And we love national parks, of course. We love mountains. I'd say a very general answer would be mountains for me. I'm really drawn to mountains, not like a huge beach person. So I would say anytime I'm in the
We're
mountains
too
or doing
pale.
a hike, yeah,
Far too pale.
I'm definitely in awe and wonderment. So
We actually just recently we did an overnight at a place called Park Omega, which sort of went viral on Instagram recently. It's a park, it's a wildlife refuge in Ontario, or it's in Quebec,
Quebec.
Right on the Ontario border in Quebec. And you can rent a cabin overnight and essentially sleep with the wolves. The back wall of your cabin is a giant glass window in a wolf enclosure. And throughout the course of the night, they'll be howling and they'll come right up to your window and there's lights out there so you can see them. And then, there's no television in the cabin. There's spotty internet and cell phone reception. So you're sort of forced to just sit there by a window looking at nothing and waiting. And every few hours, an incredible creature will come wandering by, and you just have to sort of appreciate it for what it is. So we actually went there on election night. That's how we wrote out the election. Was overnight in this cabin, living with the wolves, and wondering if we would ever come back. But yeah, I think both of us, we find that kind of nature tourism. Like we've been to Costa Rica a couple of times, in Colombia, and we love going and finding nature where it's still wild and kind of immersing ourselves in it.
I think we all spent election night with the wolves.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true. Yeah.
Yep.
You just slightly more literally than others.
Sure.
It's fair.
On your website, you talk about being upcycled folk. To close out the interview, I'd like you to choose a song by another artist, something you've had no involvement in creating, and
Okay.
choose an upcycled folk song.
I'll make you go first because then I can think.
Oh, okay. An upcycled folk song. Oh man. There's so many good ones. I'm trying to think. I just put this great playlist together on Spotify called Good Folk. And there was a lot of great songs on there where it was basically just, all kinds of folk music.
I'll throw one in while you look if you want,
Okay.
because there's so many well-known versions of old songs. As an example, Dolly Parton does an amazing version of Silver Dagger, that is just kind of a straight bluegrass treatment. But the one that I'm actually going to say is by a lesser known band called Cara.
Oh yeah, that's a good
Kara, I think is
no C A
Cara, and they're German. It's a German Celtic folk ensemble, and they did a version of the song. Is theirs called Poison Pea?
Mm-hmm. Poison Peas.
Poisoned Peas, and it's a version of the Two Sisters song, if I'm not mistaken, which is an old child ballad, but they upcycled it and made it more modern. No, I'm getting it all wrong. What is it?
It's not Two Sisters. It's maybe Little Sir Hugh.
Oh God. Okay, I thought it was version Two Sisters. Anyways, it's an upcycled,
it's very nerdy
child ballad that they made their own, and it's a really cool arrangement. So Poison Peas by Cara.
Mm-hmm.
Now you say yours so I can tell you why you're
wrong. God, it's really hard. I would say, you know what? I'm gonna say Hayloft by Nickel Creek, even though they're covering another band's song and it's an alternative band. I forget the name of it. Mother, yeah.
Canada.
But I love that song anyway.
Sure, I guess that counts as upcycled because it's a cover turning it into a folk song.
Yeah. So I think it's kind of cool.
Hayloft by Nickel Creek. Cool.
Anytime you're turning something into a folk song, you're improving it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, House of Hamill, the new album is Wildfire. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks for having us.